Sometimes the feeling comes before the explanation. That is what makes it so easy to dismiss at first. Nothing is obviously wrong. Nothing has clearly fallen apart. And yet, something feels different. Subtle. Quiet. But consistent. Like something no longer sits the way it used to. And because you cannot explain it easily, you try to adjust. You tell yourself it is just a phase, that it will pass, that you just need to keep going. I've noticed that this is what many people do when something no longer fits. They do not notice it as a clear truth at first. They feel it as discomfort, as friction, as a low-level sense that something is slightly off. And because it is not dramatic, they keep trying to make it feel the way it used to. But the feeling stays. Quiet. Consistent. In the background. That is where this becomes important. Because not every uncomfortable feeling means something is wrong. Sometimes it means something has changed. And the difficult part is that the change is often internal first. You are not static. You change over time. How you think. What you value. What you are willing to accept. What you are no longer willing to keep explaining away. And as those things shift, what once fit, you may not fit in the same way anymore. That is such a quiet kind of change. Because outwardly, a lot may still look the same. The same routines. The same people. The same expectations. The same environment. So the mismatch begins internally. I remember noticing this kind of shift in very ordinary situations. Not in huge life events. More in small moments. A conversation that felt heavier than it used to. A routine I could do, but no longer connected with. A role I could still perform, but not inhabit in the same way. That is usually how it begins. Not loudly, but recognizably. You may notice you no longer relate to certain things the way you used to. Old habits feel different. Old conversations feel out of place. Even familiar environments start to feel draining in a way you cannot fully justify. And because it is subtle, you question yourself. Maybe I am overthinking. Maybe it is just me. Maybe I am making something out of nothing. But the feeling continues. That is the part worth paying attention to. Because outgrowing something does not always feel like clarity. Very often, it feels like discomfort first. Like something is slightly off, but not clearly defined. And because it is not clear, many people stay where they are, trying to make it feel the way it used to, trying to make themselves fit back into something they have already begun to move beyond. But it does not feel the same. Because you are not the same. That is the shift. You are not necessarily trying to fix something that is broken. You may be recognizing something that no longer fits. That is a very different experience. And it deserves a different response. Not panic. Not shame. Not the assumption that something is wrong with you. Just honesty. So instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" ask something more accurate. What no longer feels like me, even if it once did? That question matters. Because it shifts the focus from self-blame to awareness, from confusion to recognition. You do not need to rush that question. It does not require immediate action. It does not require dramatic change overnight. It just requires honesty. And once that honesty begins, something softens. You stop trying to force alignment with something that no longer fits. You begin to notice what feels lighter, what feels more natural, what feels more like you now. That last part matters. Now. Not who you were. Not who other people still expect you to be. But who you are now. That is where real change becomes possible. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But gradually. In ways that feel more honest. More stable. More real. I think this is why some people feel relief just from naming the mismatch. Not because everything changes immediately, but because they stop fighting themselves quite so hard. They stop assuming the discomfort is a flaw and start recognizing it as information. So if something has been feeling off, pause. It may not mean something is wrong. It may mean you have changed and something around you has not. And once you begin to see that, you begin to move differently. Not from panic. Not from pressure. But towards what actually fits. Sometimes that is what growing feels like at first. Not certainty. Not confidence. Just the quiet realization that something no longer sits the way it used to. And that realization may be more important than it first appears.